Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Vivian S. de Guzman, and welcome to our show, My Spiritual GPS. So we know that you are where you are at this moment. That is your position in time. And all of us would like to have some form of a soul-fulfilling, aligned, and purposeful life. Sometimes, though, life gets in the way and there are situations, occurrences, some baggage, as we call it, in the middle of that journey, right? Getting to our soul purpose. So today, we have a very special topic, very, very sensitive, in fact, for those of you who have probably lost a spouse or a loved one. And in today's show, I have invited a very, very special guest, dear to my heart, Dr. Roneisa Matero. Dr. Roneisa Matero is a veteran. She is actually a nurse practitioner, so we call her Doctor of Nursing. She is a grief expert, a certified health coach, and life coach. And she has spent her entire professional career helping and serving people. We know that just because I have been personally, she's been a client of mine. We've been friends. We've co-authored different books together. And so she also served as a Gulf War veteran, right? As flight medic to treat patients as a family nurse practitioner for nearly 20 years. And throughout her career, she has helped many widows along their grief journey. That must be very hard, Doc. And she lives in a small town in Northeast Texas, close to her children and grandchildren. They're all beautiful, and where she enjoys being out in nature and spending time with her family. In fact, I know she loves the water and she loves the yacht. So Dr. Roneisa, thank you so much. And today our topic is finding yourself after losing your spouse. Can you share with us a little bit of what that's like? And if you want to share a little bit more of who you are, you know, as a human, right? Like, obviously this grief thing has brought you to your knees and probably beyond that. So share with us a little bit of that story.
Yes. Thank you, Vivian. Thanks for having me today. In 2002, I unexpectedly lost my husband in an airplane crash in the Air Force. And we were left where I was left with a 5 and a 7-year-old to raise, which very unexpected. I didn't know what to do. I was overwhelmed. I was going to school full time and working full time, and now I had to be the mom and the dad. So through the years, I just put my head down, and I had tunnel vision, and I just raised my children, and I would grieve when I had time, and I just realized that I had to do what I had to do to get my children raised, and that was my focus. Right. The hardest thing is becoming the head of the household and learning to do everything yourself, and still putting your children first. Finding time to grieve, I found, was hard, and that's why I decided to write my book and to help other widows grieve and raise their children, because I felt like I was not doing it right or doing it wrong. But I guess there's no right or wrong way to do it. You just do it and you get through it. But there were some things I think I could have done differently that I'd like to help other people to realize before they go down that, if they're along that journey that I was on. So
right. So your kids then were 5 and 7 years old. So how old are they now?
They're 25 and 23 now.
Wow.
Yeah. And 2 grandchildren.
Time, right? So that's like 20.
That's 18 years. 18 years ago.
Yes. 18 years ago. Okay, there's my math. There goes my math. Okay.
So, feels like longer than that.
That's right. That's right. And I guess, so you were passionate about that because looking inside introspectively, and by the way, for those of you who are watching, look at what she did, right? She just put her head down, and she said she grieved when she has time. Tell us what that means. Like, what does grieving when you have time mean?
Well, for me, I didn't want my children to see me grieve. So I would grieve when I was in the shower. That seemed to be the easiest place. You just cry in the shower. And, right. And you really don't know. You just do it. You get your crying out, and then you go take care of your children, get them ready for school, whatever you have to do, get ready for work.
Right.
So I learned to grieve when my children weren't around. In hindsight, I probably should have let them see me grieve a little bit more so that they would know that I was real. Because when I talk to them now, they're like, Mom, we never knew what you went through. And I said, well, I really didn't want you to know what I went through because I was trying to be strong for you.
Right, right. Yeah, and that must be hard. Like you said, even if we know, like energetically, there's the male side of us, the right side, and the female side of us. It's still in our mindset, right? Our expectation, a family consists of like a father, a mother, and children. So you had to do both roles at the same time. That must be quite challenging. Because I know a lot of the single parents would tell me, you sometimes the kids want the female side of us, right? The nurturing, loving, hug me, mom, and kiss me. But then the father side's like, no, you got to be disciplined because we want to make sure that you don't go astray. So how did you balance all of that? That must be, again, challenging.
It was difficult at times, I have to say, because I didn't want to discipline them, but I knew I had to because there was no one else that could help them learn right from wrong and to help them grow up and be productive members of society, which in my mind was how I would succeed raising my children, was to help them grow up strong and well-rounded and, just good overall people and that loved other people, caring, compassionate. So yeah, the feminine side probably came out a lot more, but the masculine side was the side where I had to get up and go to work every day and provide and put a roof over their head and feed them. Right. So it was a balancing act.
Yeah, must be. So what helped you move past the pain of your grief and move forward? So I know I've heard a lot of 5 stages of grief, but I know in your book you mentioned something else. Do you mind enlightening the audience a bit on what are those stages and how did you respond to that, and how could you help these people move from their own pain and then move forward?
Well, you're right. And I read a lot about grief as I was going through it. And you're right. The 5 stages of grief are not the only stages. We go through them, but and then you think once you get through that stage that it's not going to come back, but it does come back, and you go through those stages again, because if you don't completely grieve or you don't get through that pain, it's going to come back, which for me, I felt a lot of times because I was so busy raising my children that I didn't properly grieve through some of the denial and the shock and the anger. I was angry for a long time. So I realized that I had to put myself into my work. And also one thing that really helped me was making a scrapbook for my children of their father. So that it was hard. And at the same time, I was able to grieve and get some of that pain out and onto paper to help them remember their father. So that was one of the big things that I did for my children, and they love the scrapbook. And so that really helped me just to let it out.
Very good. Yeah, that's true. Because if it's in our heads, most likely it's going to be in our bodies. So we know that. I teach my clients, your soul is the boss. So the soul will always grow and expand, because it doesn't want you to get stuck in one area of your life or one stage in your life. Even if you're grieving, you're happy, it doesn't really matter what you're feeling. The soul always wants to grow, right, and expand. But the soul dictates what your heart feels, and then your heart tells your mind what to think, and then the mind tells the body what to do. So during the time that you were having the denial and the shock and the anger, what are you feeling in your body? So then the audience can relate. Like, do you really feel something when you're angry, or do you do something else?
Well, I felt a lot of heartache. I did feel a lot of pain in my heart and my chest. That especially when I was working through my anger, or I was upset or crying or looking through old photos, I would feel a lot of, and maybe it was anxiety too, just
Right.
because I was anxious about what was coming, because the unknown about raising the kids and
Mm-hmm.
what to do and how to do what they needed, because I wanted to do what Chris would have wanted me to do. So that was always that feeling of my heart would just feel like it was aching, just because I didn't want to make the wrong decision. I wanted to make the right decision for my children.
So did you actually go to the doctor knowing you're in the healthcare field, right? Did you get your heart checked to make sure, is it not a heart problem, like a physical, is it an angina? Is it a heart attack? What's going on? So did you consult anyone during that time?
Well, being a nurse practitioner, no, I didn't, because I just felt like that was part of my mourning. That was my grieving.
Right.
And that's where I felt it was in my body, was in my heart, because I just felt like a piece of my heart was missing. When he died, it was like a piece of me was taken.
Right.
So I didn't, which is probably not the right thing to do. But when I was hurting in so much pain is when it would happen. So I just associated that, and I didn't associate that with any kind of heart problem or heart attack or.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Okay. So, and I know I've been following your posts on social media, and there's this one post that's really nice to share with the audience. When something bad happens, you said you have 3 choices, right? You can either let it define you, let it destroy you, or you can let it strengthen you, by Dr. Seuss. So I guess for the other people now watching, maybe they're going through this, or maybe their husband or their wife is sick, right? What are some practical tips that you can give the audience to help them right now?
Well, I think the biggest thing is to not ignore your grief, to let it come, to feel it, to sit with it. And you got to feel the pain to be able to heal the pain, which was something that I did not understand when I was first going through my grief. Just like this quote, yes, you have to let the pain visit and allow it to teach you, but don't allow it to overstay, which means once we can feel it and we can start to heal, then we can start to move forward. But staying in the grief and staying in the sadness and never getting out of the house and just never moving forward puts us in a place where we get stuck. And then we don't know how to get past that, because we're stuck there and our thoughts are negative, and we just get into those loops and negativity. So getting out, doing things, keeping your mind busy. I like to go out and take a walk. If I start to feel myself getting overwhelmed or getting upset about something, I just get out of the house, because I don't want to stay in the house, and I go take a walk out in nature, and that calms me, calms my anxiety, makes me feel better. And it just helps me to heal, just to get out and take some deep breaths, and I feel a lot better.
Right. And that's very simple. It's free, right? And it's just a matter of shifting what you're feeling. So you actually have control over it rather than it controlling you.
Right.
Yeah. And that's true. You've heard of the law of attraction, that within 17 seconds, whatever you feel, you magnetize that in the universe. So you're attracting. So if you're feeling sad, upset, angry, and I know that anger is usually just it's kind of like the crust of the emotion, but that's not really what you're feeling. It could be some form of a pain, some form of some sadness. It's something there aside from anger that's present. And it is also a boundary violation, actually, like, because you're allowing things to come in aside from just what you're feeling, like when you're connected to God, right? When you're connected to your own higher power. So I know it took you a long time to go through this, right? I remember when I met you, and then it's almost like as if when you're talking, it just happened yesterday, right? So you mentioned, and I remember you saying this, it seems like when you wake up with your spouse gone, suddenly it feels like you're a nightmare that never ends. Why is that? Why does it keep on recurring? I guess that's the question.
Well, I think for most of us who have been married for any length of time, you just keep expecting them to come back. So you keep reliving that that they're not there. It's just a constant reminder that they're not coming home. So you get into that, like I said, those thought loops, and it just, you wake up every morning and they're still not there and they're not coming home. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just the pain and the reminder. And if you have children, then you're really reminded every day, because you look at your children and you see your husband. My
Mm-hmm.
children look just like their father.
Oh, wow.
So there was always a reminder, even though I have beautiful, amazing children,
Mm-hmm.
their dad wasn't there to see them grow up. And that's where you get into that. Every time you think you're moving forward, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, something happens, like, okay, like your daughter goes to prom or your daughter gets married, and
And
her dad's not there. So
yeah.
right. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So, and I know you somehow wrote a book. And what's the title of the book?
The title of the book is called It Takes Courage: The Young Widow's Guide to Grieving and Raising Children Alone.
Okay. Can you show us where they can find that book?
Yes, if you go to my website, www.thecourageprocess.com, and you can download a free copy, or I can, if you send me your address, I can send you a printed copy. So
Awesome. And is that an acronym, Doc? The courage, like what does that mean? Courage.
yes, I came up with a process. It's a 9-week process, and I take you through the courage process, because we have to break it down. It's not something you're going to get over tomorrow or the next day. Grief is something that takes time, and you have to work at it, and you have to decide that you want to move forward.
Right.
Sometimes it's easier for us to just stay in our grief and not move forward because we feel comfortable there.
Right.
Whether it's it's sadness or anger. Sometimes we don't want to move forward. But if we make the decision to move forward, I have decided I came up with the courage process, and it takes you through it's 7 steps, but there's 9 weeks, because there's an introductory, and then there is a wrap-up week at the end where we talk about it, and we move forward. We decide we're going to move forward at the end of this process.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, so let's entertain some questions from the live audience. And by the way, thank you so much for watching. And for some of you who have some questions for our guest, for me, in the energetic or spiritual realm, and how we work with this grief process, so to speak, you're welcome to type in your comments on our Facebook Human MRI or our Vivian Money Magnet YouTube channel. And I'm going to bring up Sarah, that's helping us. Hello, Sarah. Thank you for helping us today. So are there any...
Hi there.
Let's see. Are there any questions or comments that people are asking us about our TV show today?
I don't see any questions yet, but I can definitely, I guess I have a comment myself. I always do. But I noticed that grieving is a human experience, and I feel like it can pretty much, like if you state that there's 5 stages to grieving, that means most humans are going to grieve in a process. What fascinates me is how different cultures grieve differently, and I think about my culture and how when women are widowed, it's very rare that they ever remarry, and it's a very cultural thing, and they rarely move on. They always, so yeah, that was my comment, is just how unique it is to see different types of cultures and how they grieve the loss of a spouse. And yeah, I've always been probably a little inappropriate saying you should remarry, you should move on with your life, and that's just me, but I do see how there's cultural barriers there. So that was one comment I had. And then Venus wants to know, she says, do you still feel super attached to your former husband and fear that maybe he wouldn't want you to find love again? I have heard some women feeling this way. So there's two kind of points, unique points. And Lauren says, you're such a lovely guest. How is the grieving process the same, different to letting go of a spouse through separation or divorce?
Those are two questions. So
Yeah.
let's answer Venus's question first.
Sure.
Yeah, I think Roneisa, that's yours.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, I still feel very attached to my husband. I think it's because spiritually, I feel we were soulmates, and I feel like he has been around to help me raise my children. And I would always call on him. I would pray and I would talk to him just like he was with me. So I still feel very attached. I don't know that I will ever remarry because I still feel so attached to him. But I feel that I will find love again, and I'm not opposed to getting married again. And like you said, in different cultures, I think in the way I was raised, it was you don't ever get remarried again. That was my grandmother lost her husband, and she didn't get remarried again. So and you're supposed to mourn for the rest of your life, which I can see part of that, but I don't want to mourn for the rest of my life the way I have been, for years. I want to find happiness again, and I know there is happiness out there. So through my courage process, I have learned to find love, to find happiness, even if it's through my kids, my grandchildren. That's happiness. I adore them. So yeah, I still feel very attached to him. I feel like he's around me and my children all the time.
Wow, beautiful, cool.
So yeah, back to Lauren's question about.
Oh, we can't hear you, Sarah. We disconnected. Okay, there you go.
I'm back. The divorce and separation, I guess, being similar to mourning the actual loss of a husband.
I think they are similar, and I think we do go through some of the same anger and denial and shock. So grieving, whether it's grieving the loss of a spouse or grieving the loss of a marriage or grieving the loss of a job, we do go through some of the same stages, steps, feelings that we all go through some of the similar. As a matter of fact, I did go after my husband passed. They didn't have a grieving widows group at the church, but they had a divorced group at the church. And they took us through the same steps, through the 5 steps of grieving: the denial, the anger, the acceptance. So they were talking. I was the only one that was widowed, and all I did was sit there and cry the whole time. But I did get a lot out of it because it did help me to recognize some of those stages when they were happening. And so, yes, they overlap, and I feel like it is a lot of the same grieving process.
Yeah. And I believe that, like, even my clients that go from where they are in, let's say you're an employee, then you transition to being an entrepreneur, there's still a grieving process. And I read this somewhere in one of the books I'm reading, that every time you get out of something, it could be a job, a relationship, or you're moving from one house to another, or apartment, right, to another, there will always be some form of unhappiness, which means there's some form of sadness and grief that's happening. And last time that I had the show, you know how we talked about the lung point? Because grief is usually located in our chest area, like in your lungs. So you can use the lung point and massage that whole section all the way to underneath your collarbone if you're really tight or sore there. that can help move along the process, right? Because like she said, you may be stuck in one phase and you need to keep on moving, but it's not unusual because we have a lot of experiences with the person that we're with, that the memories come back every time there's another trigger, good or bad, right? It's just that's how we process it. And then eventually we learn so much from that, about ourselves, about our spouse, where we were when we chose that person in our life, because we do change, especially if you're doing some self-development, personal development, any kind of growth process. When you choose that spouse then, right, so many years ago, you most likely have a different mindset, different feeling about yourself and about what you're asking the person to be in your life. So that's just part of the lesson that goes with that. Yep, transitions. Any other questions or comments, Sarah?
Not at this moment, no.
Okay, awesome. So do you have any other last words for us, Doc? What else can you share with them as far as how do they overcome? So let's say they're moving into finding another partner, or they just want to get out of it thinking, well, I guess if I find somebody else, could be a replacement, right? Any strategies to overcome guilt, shame, and regrets?
Well, I think don't stuff them down. Let them come. You know, like we talked about earlier, you have to feel those emotions. Those are emotions that you're going to feel anytime you have a loss. And even with, just like we talked about earlier, with a divorce or a separation, you're going to feel that guilt and the shame. It's a normal feeling for humans, and just feel it and move forward from it. And if you find someone that you want to date, then go for it. If you feel like that is the right choice for you at the time, you know, feel in your heart and make that choice and make the decision. You don't know unless you go out and you talk to people and you get out and you explore.
Right.
It's good to get out. That helps us with all of our feelings that we're dealing with, especially with grief. Not staying in the house and being depressed and lonely. That's not going to help us move forward at all. So getting out and meeting people and hanging out with your friends or family, that's one big thing that helped me, was just spending time with my family and just knowing that I wasn't alone. I felt alone. That was part of my, the biggest part for me was feeling like I was alone, like nobody understood. But there are people that do understand. So don't just stay in the house and grieve. Get out and meet people. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to flash this again because I know that this is important, right? So in summary, she wants to make us aware that we must let the pain visit.
Yeah.
And I know one time I asked a potential client, a client of mine, I said, so what happens if your husband passes away, like tomorrow? And for some of us, we don't even want to go there. It's kind of tough, right? But preparing for that is, if you have ways to prepare for it, that would be great. But if you really don't, you do have to feel this emotion, whatever this is, because there's a lot of waves, like Dr. Roneisa was saying. You must allow it to teach you, whatever that is, guilt, shame, regrets, right? And you must not allow it to overstay. So the choice is still yours, right? You just have to move the feeling as if it's like water over a duck's back. That's how I see emotions. It just rolls right out. Okay. All right, Doc. I'm going to make sure they know how to connect with you. So can you share with them your email if perhaps they just want to talk and just somebody to hear them out, so to speak, right? Just because it's such a difficult process.
Yes. So my email is dr.dr-roneisa, Roneisa, at thecourageprocess.com. Or you can
Awesome.
go to the website, www.thecourageprocess.com. If you click on Contact Me, it will take you directly to my email. And you can send me a message or ask me for the book. I'll be happy to send you a printed copy of my book if you would like that as well.
Awesome. Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Roneisa, Sarah, for managing all
Thank
those
you.
comments.
Thank you.
And next week, stay tuned. We're gonna do a flip of this. We're gonna do the laughing Buddha.
Oh,
That's what we're doing next Tuesday. So tune in next Tuesday again at 12 p.m. on My Spiritual GPS. And we're going to be laughing it all out. All right. Thank you so much. And everyone have a great day.
Thank you so much.